Hello, everyone, and welcome to the RoB Academy Drive Home webinar this week. And I'm going solo this week, so it's going to be a fun and interesting time. And I do have Nicole here with me, which I'll just quickly say hi to. Hey, Nicole, how you doing?
G'day, Chris. Good, thanks.
That's fantastic. Now, look, I'm just going to get straight into this because we've got a lot to cover tonight, and I know you've got even big plans after this. So you're a busy girl, inside and outside of this world. So looking forward to seeing what comes from tonight. Now, look, I guess you didn't end up where you are now. It was part of a process and sort of, through education and learning and a whole bunch of things, you ended up in the world you are. So it's kind of like what you're going to be talking about tonight hasn't just come out of nowhere. It's been a journey to get to where you are and through that experience. And I guess that's what I'm looking forward to sharing with people, that, just because wherever they are in life at the moment doesn't mean that's where you're going to end up. There's always interesting challenges along the way, and you're here to share some of those experiences, which we look forward to learning from. But talking about you, so around 2010, I'm reading off the card here that you went, you call it FIFO, fly in, fly out, and you're working in the mining and oil and gas sectors, and left your family behind. And in that short years, you participated in hundreds of media interviews across the country and internationally, around the ABC, and you contributed to TV. And then you had a small business idea that went on to do great things. And that, from what you're telling me here, it was active in every state and in the country, and it assisted over 15,000 families to navigate the FIFO lifestyle. And then you sold that business in 2015. Yep. And now you focus on assisting businesses to gain success through mentoring and teaching businesses owners to generate their own free PR, which is essentially what I think most people have jumped on tonight, is to learn how does that magic work?
For sure.
And then allow it to grow their business. And obviously, I think I love this part of doing what I do in people, and that's why I bring people like yourself on tonight, is because it's about securing that place of authority and putting you as a thought leader in your industry. And there's no better platform than things like what we're doing tonight to allow you to, express that and show that. But also, I mean, this is a free webinar and we're doing some free publicity. So this is a good example of living and breathing what we're talking about.
Hello.
And to even go further than this, you've been a dual Telstra Businesswoman of the Year finalist. That's pretty impressive. Telstra Business of the Year finalist.
Yep.
And a dual under 40 winner in WA when you were time over there. And obviously you've moved back recently. So which makes both of us kind of interesting. We've moved both back to Ballarat around the same time. And
we did.
Full disclaimer, we did go to school together all those years ago. So
we did.
Yeah, so we've done a full journey. So it's been quite interesting. I'm going to be learning as others as you come along of what changed since we went to school together. So that's it. So I guess where do we start? Like, I guess, tell us your side of things and what's the most common thing businesses struggle with when it comes to getting their name out there? Like is this sort of media area? Because people do get scared of it, So
I think that's probably one of the biggest things I noticed is that resistance of, the fear that comes up when you talk about getting into the media or being interviewed. So having a camera in your face or a microphone, or listening to your voice, being played back on radio, or, looking at a photo of yourself in a magazine can freak people out. But I always just say to them, what's your goal? What's your why for business? Do you want to make millions of dollars? Do you want to change the world? What is it that you want to do? And if you do want to, be quite big in what you're doing, then use the media, because it's one of the most effective ways and one of the quickest ways to grow your business organically and for free, and to get seen and heard and to become that go-to authority in your field. Hugely powerful. I love it.
Yeah, but most of us don't know how. Like, we get scared. We just see these people on TV and we think, well, they've got onto TV because they've kind of been the leader in their field, or, they've done something special. Is that the case always, or is there?
No, not at all. Not at all. So there's a couple of perceptions. So people think, firstly, to get in the media has to cost money. So I've got to pay the media for a newspaper ad, for example, that might be $2,000 for a half-page ad, or $3,000, or I need to have an agent that can put me on TV.
Yep.
Or they need a PR company. And I've used a PR company in the past. Had them on a retainer of $5,000 a month for 3 months. and went, nope, that's not for me, because I was still getting the media interviews anyway. But that's the perception people have is, oh, firstly, I've got to be an expert already, or I've got to pay a lot of money. Like I've got to pay thousands and thousands of dollars ongoing to get in the media. And neither of those points are true.
Right, for sure. Now, before we go any further, I just realised I forgot to mention and shout out to anyone that's listening out there, and there's a few of you tonight, which we've good to see. What we'd love you to do is, if you notice an opportunity to shout out and chuck a question our way, Nicole is open to any of them. We have a format we're going to follow, but we have plenty of time in there allowed for questions. So if you're out there and you want to throw them our way, we're more than happy to hear from you. So don't be scared. If you've got a question, this is your chance to get some free advice from Nicole as she's live and willing to do so. So, yeah. So look, you raised a point there again, like about the money, and most people think a lot of this, does cost a lot of money. And you mentioned like the cost of PR and all these kind of things. To make yourself interesting and to be validated by the media, like what are some of the steps we have to take to get there? Like,
yeah, it's a great question. And firstly, you need to understand how the media work and what they're looking for. So you need to understand that the media is a business as well.
Right.
And what they want is increase ratings. So they want more viewers, more listeners, and more subscribers, basically, or more eyes on them. So they want to interview people who are going to be engaging and who know their area of expertise. And for us as business owners, that's quite easy, because I always say to people, look, if you are living and breathing your business every single day, you're an expert. So social media, Chris, like nobody else does. And you could go into the media and probably talk for 3 days about that. And as business owners, I think we just need to flip that perception of, I'm not an expert, to, well, yeah, I'm doing this every single day. I'm out there, selling my products or my services. Yeah, I've got knowledge to share. And that's what they're looking for, is people who have knowledge to share, who are engaging, and who are also available. So if the media ring you up and say, Chris, can we interview you in 30 minutes? You say yes.
Yep.
You don't go, oh, no, sorry, I've got a meeting.
Yeah. You've
got to say yes when they approach you.
Yeah. But again, what's the trick here is that you've got to be the person that they think of to call.
Yeah.
So are there tricks to doing that? Is there something you can do to facilitate that opportunity?
Yeah, for sure. So if you are completely cold to the media and the media have no idea who you are, you're not on their radar, the easiest way to get on their radar is to write what I call a well-crafted media release or press release. And that's really about unpacking your story and attaching maybe to either a couple of things, a trending story. So if we're talking about, the bushfires or climate, global warming, for example, they're two trending stories.
Yep.
Or you might also then be attaching to a day or a week or a month that the media always cover and talk about, such as Christmas, school holidays, family get-togethers, getting fit in summer, losing weight after Christmas. So we know that they're repeat trends the media will always talk about.
Yep.
So it's a matter of looking at those and going, right, so let's say you're an environmental scientist.
Yep.
And you write sustainability policies for businesses, right? And at the moment, we've got all this media attention around climate change. So you could actually write a piece, write a media release and send that to, say, ABC Radio, talking about your opinion on what needs to shift and how businesses might be able to tackle climate change, for example.
Right.
And that's something you could write about and pitch to a lot of print and talkback radio. Yep. Maybe TV. So with TV, you've always got to think, is it a good visual? But if it's something that's quite topical, then you could be placed on, say, for example, Today's Show, Sunrise, or Current Affair.
Yeah.
And so it's just about looking at what are the media covering, what topics do they want to talk about, can I contribute? So I always say to my clients, if you see your area trending in the news or a particular story, ask yourself, could I comment? Like, could I actually comment about climate change and sustainability in business? Could I comment about that? Yes, I could. All right. And then, is that relevant to my core business? Yes. If you get 2 yeses, then go to them. And we also need to realize that the media are literally starving for stories, because they're a 24/7 news cycle now. The opportunities for us, and now that we've got free to air and paid TV as well, the opportunities for us are more than ever. And then we've also got the rise of podcasts, webinar interviews like this. So yeah, the world is your oyster.
For sure. Now, I know you've mentioned before that not to just talk about yourself in these situations. So do you want to sort of give us a bit more insight into that side of things? Because I know recently you did a pitch about this to people and you sort of said to them, look, we you know, if you go out there and you just say, I'm awesome at business and I'm awesome and I'm awesome, like they're just going to tune off, because all it is about you and how awesome you are, not the problem you solve or how you can give them a story to tell others. Can you expand on that a little bit more for me?
Yeah. It's more just like kind of boring to us, you know, when we're being pitched to. So, you know, when you're pitching yourself to the media, it's all about the story. So it's about you promoting your story, or your thoughts or opinions, not your product or your business. So as soon as you go to the media and you're like, look at my business, it's awesome, because as business owners, our businesses are awesome. We know that. But if we just go and pitch out to the media, they'll be like, no, not interested. You're just here for blatant self-promotion and commercialization. So particularly ABC won't have a bar of it. So you've really got to understand, all right, so what have I got to contribute? How can I add to these comments that the media are talking about? What are the stories that I can share, whether it's from my clients or my own personal story? So as an example, with FIFO Families, with my first company, one of the reasons why the media wanted to talk to me was because I was a first mover in that space, but Fly In, Fly Out was really starting to get a lot of uptake in WA. So there was 60,000 FIFO workers in WA. It's probably about, 40,000 now. And there was another 50,000 in Queensland.
Yep.
And I had the voice of, I'm a FIFO wife and mum, raising 3 kids on my own for a month at a time, a month off. So I had a lot of insight and I could bring a lot of stories. And then as the organisation grew, I could bring in stories from other families and workers. So the media always really wanted to know about what was happening, because the human element of the lifestyle is really significant. So the media loves strong human elements in stories, unless you're pitching your business to a B2B magazine. So there's a nice little publication that comes out of Melbourne called Small Business.
Yep.
And,
you happened to get your face on front of recently, didn't you?
Oh, no, that was another one. That was Small Business Essentials, I think.
Oh, right.
Yeah,
sorry.
It's another one. There's a lot of them. Yep. So if we're pitching to, business publications, that's more about, it's still our story, but how are we helping other businesses, or it might be your story about business growth, for example. But mainstream media, stories.
Yeah. And is there an expectation of how much exposure you want to get from these, or can get from these things? Like, is it just the media release, or is there more to it than just shooting out the media release? Like, yeah,
there's a little bit more to it, because it's always great to get a media interview, but to become that go-to in your particular niche, you need a good sort of 5, 6, 10 media interviews a year, and across different media mediums or media outlets, so TV, radio and print. And once that happens, then you'll find yourself very quickly on their call list. Radar. So they will have a top 3 people, but basically on speed dial that they want to talk to. And it's just with, 5, 6 interviews, quite quickly you'll be placed there. And the media watch and listen to each other. So if you pop up on Channel 7 and then ABC radio, and then say, The Age, for example, the media, they kind of got their finger on the pulse, and they'll read what you've said, and they might watch you being interviewed and have a listen and go, right, okay, Chris knows what he's talking about. Next time social media comes up, or we're looking at, social media at a local level, let's interview Chris. And once you, share your passion and you say yes and show your availability, they'll get you back in over and over again.
Fantastic. Yeah. Now, do you want to maybe give a little bit of how you got to do some of this stuff, like some of your, like use examples that you've done like you did before, but maybe just about how, because I know you've actually got a back catalogue of interviews now, like, and we were talking about even internationally, you've had the BBC type interviews. So how do they come about? Like, what was the things again that triggered it? Was just the topic, or was it words you used, or like, how did it,
For me, it was probably the topic. So it all started out with, I was working, I think the business had been running FIFO Families for 6 months, and my desk, or my office was in my bedroom, and I was working away, and a friend rang me and she said, Nicole, they're talking about FIFO on ABC Radio Perth, and they want to talk to FIFO wives a month. Yeah.
Yeah, how cool is that? Not a fancy office, just sitting at home.
No. Yeah, I had a bay window that could fit a desk, so that's where I started. And so I'd never ever been on radio, never been on Talkback. So I rang up Talkback Radio, and it's the producers that vet you. So when you're ringing up for Talkback, it'll be the producer of the show that asks you a couple of questions, and then we'll put you in queue. So I was on hold, and I was so nervous, Chris. My palms were sweaty. My heart was racing. The adrenaline was pumping through my body. I got on air. I think I spoke with Gillian, the lady's name was. Have no recollection of what I said. Couldn't tell you. No idea at all. Collapsed on the bed, and all this adrenaline just ran out of my body. And then I had this realization. I didn't even mention FIFO families.
Right.
Yeah, great. Good use of opportunity. So what I did was I rang up ABC Radio, and you can always ring them because they don't have gatekeepers. They're very open, which is great. And I said, look, I was just on air talking about FIFO. Could I get the producer's email address? She said, yep, sure, no worries. So I emailed Rosemary and said, Rosemary, look, I was just on your program, talking about being a FIFO wife and mum. So that's the human element, right? And it's something that was trending in WA at that particular moment. And I said, I thought you might be interested in knowing about my organisation. So I didn't say company because it was ABC Radio. So I said organisation. And a lot of people assumed that FIFO families are not for profit, but it wasn't. Mm-hmm. And anyway, she said, oh, Nicole, fantastic. Could you come into the studio tomorrow for an interview?
Yep.
Just like that. So that was my first radio interview. And that led to hundreds of ABC radio interviews across the country. So whenever there was, so I used Google Alerts. So I had a Google Alert set up for FIFO. So every day I would check that. So in little old Perth, if they were talking about, FIFO in Queensland or Tasmania or New Zealand, I knew about it. And then as I did more and more interviews, I knew, well, hang on, they're going to call you, so keep your phone on. So quite often I'd keep my phone on overnight because of the time difference. Mm-hmm. And, the phone might ring at, sort of 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning for a radio interview or newspaper interview or TV. So it started from that, and then it was just being available because it was something that was trending in Perth and then across the country. And then also there was that international debate as well. It just grew from there. Yeah,
right. So it's it's one of those things, once you do get yourself on the radar, things can blossom. And then I guess that's the next level of making sure that you know what's going on in your particular field. But how much can you mention about yourself in these interviews, or is it sort of stay on topic, and naturally through visibility and credibility, you get to, people will look you up. And I guess probably that's another topic we'll touch a little bit later about, once you now got the credibility, what do people go looking and find online for you? But in your case, is it, you mentioned there, you didn't mention it because it was ABC, but what's sort of the approach in that scenario? How much is too much mentioning?
Well, I would always, it depends. So if you're popping up on, say, Channel 7 News or Channel 9 News on the weekly news segment, you might get 15 seconds or 20 seconds as a feature, and it'll pop up, Nicole Ashby, FIFO family. So I would generally try as I went along, because I have no media training. I just learnt from trial and error and looking at how things would play back and which bits they would say. So I learned, TV is sound bites, that's short, sharp grabs, particularly for news. So I would try and mention the company name, FIFO family. So I might say, well, at FIFO families. So whoever's listening, they might quickly see, Nicole Ashby, FIFO families, and then they'd hear me say the name as well. And then I might drop in, the FIFO families Facebook page or the FIFO families website. Right. So I might mention the company name twice, and that's about it. Okay. And you'll find that with radio, they're really quite good at introducing you and where you're from. And they might refer to you, your business maybe 2 or 3 times over, say it's a 6-minute interview. And then they'll also end with your name and where you're from. So they'll do that for you. You don't have to do it. So we need to be mindful to be on task. Yep. And to answer the questions that are being asked of us. Otherwise they won't, you don't want to be like a politician
Yep.
Because
Sure.
otherwise
I get that. Yeah.
they
Yeah.
won't want us back.
Yeah.
But yeah, you can subtly, you might have a direct message about an event that you've got coming up, or you might be, you know, adding opinion to a debate that's, you know, happening around the world. So if it's the Me Too movement, or if it's, you know, Donald Trump and, you know, whatever he's in the news for about, you know, that particular day. So it's, yeah, just about being on point and answering the questions. And then you can generally drop in 1 or 2 key messages while you're being interviewed.
For sure. Yeah. I'm going to go right back to the beginning again and revisit, like you said something where you did the interview and the adrenaline rush and you were just like, you know, nervous as hell before the phone actually clicked and you had to start talking.
Yeah.
This is going to be a fear that most people have, right? Most people are like, I'm not good enough. Why would they want to interview me? All these sort of insecurity things that come up. We're just all human. It's normal. But how do you find, even with your clients or even yourself, overcome these sort of doubts and get yourself confident enough to promote and market yourself in the media? Like, do you have any tools and tricks for that? Yeah.
Yes. So again, I always say to people, you know, if they're a little bit resistant and hesitant and fearful, I'll just say, look, what's your why? You know, what do you want to achieve with your business? Who do you hope to reach? You know, what are the outcomes that are really driving you? And once they can see that traditional media interviews are a really quick, short way to get the results that they want, and they're like, yep, we're on board. Okay, that's great. And I support them through the process. But my biggest tip, if you're being interviewed, is just to treat it like this, Chris, just an interview with one person. So I would always ground myself, just going, and it took me a while to do it before I went, you know, settle down, bring the nerves down. It was, hang on, I'm actually just having a conversation with one person. So there might be, you know, someone with a camera or a boom mic or lights, or you might be in a radio studio, but it's still, you're always having a conversation with one person. So that would always ground me. I'm just having a conversation. That's it. I'm not going to get attacked. Generally, you'll find that the media, when you're talking to business owners, they actually want, you know, to get inside your brain and pick your brain. And, you know, they've got you there for a reason. They're not there to set you up to make you look stupid. And you've just got to, I guess, believe that's going to happen and just take one interview at a time.
For sure. And you said you did radio, so I'm assuming what you're wearing didn't matter in that case. But when it comes to TV and being in the media, is there particular things you should be aware of that you should be wearing or looking at? Is things you can take?
Yeah. So there's a little story. Julie Bishop was being interviewed on Sunrise probably about 8 weeks ago. And that woman is a knockout, and she always has really expensive, fantastically gorgeous earrings. But she was on Sunrise and I was watching it with my husband, and she had these massive blue, just diamonds and I don't know what else it was, but they were just gorgeous blue silvery earrings. And what it did for me was I couldn't stop looking at her earrings. So I wasn't listening to her. She was an ambassador for a cancer research unit. And I said to my husband, look at her earrings. How much did those earrings cost? Wow, they're just incredible. So I was totally distracted by the earrings. And then they cut away to her walking through this cancer research centre, and she's in her white coat, looking amazing like she always does. And again, massive, gorgeous earrings. And I said to my husband, I can't stop looking at her earrings. So the point from that story is don't wear things that are going to distract the viewers. So when I'd go on TV, I'd always wear block colours. So I would never, ever wear stripes like I am now. I wouldn't wear patterns, block colours, safe colours. And nothing, you know, no big distracting earrings or bold necklaces, and also things that jangle. So I'd normally wear 2 bangles. I'd take one off. I had my necklace on earlier. I took that off because I talk with my hands a lot. So you don't want those distractions. And I also say be congruent in what people would expect you, if you're being photographed for print or if you're being interviewed on TV. Just be conscious of people's expectations of what you should look like. So if you were an accountant, for example, and you're going to be interviewed on Sunrise, you wouldn't rock up in a t-shirt and jeans or a tracksuit, because people immediately their bullshit radar goes off, and then they can't concentrate on what they're saying. They're just going, something's not right with this guy. You know, same if you were a personal trainer, you wouldn't want to go on Sunrise in a suit. Again, you're like, what are they? And so you've lost them because our reptilian brain, our original brain goes, this is crazy. Something's not right. I don't feel safe, or I don't trust what they're saying. So it's really about being congruent with the image that people would expect to see you in.
Yep.
And don't wear anything that's too distracting, and block colours.
Yeah. Yeah. So in our RoB group, we actually have, and Corey's on there tonight. A big shout out to Corey. He does a lot of video stuff, and he is working on that kind of stuff as well with people to help them on that front. So you're probably saying a lot of things that are music to his ears. And I know Costa in our Melbourne group is also a brand photographer. He'll be interviewed next week, and he'll be talking about all that too. So tune in next week and learn a little bit more about how to go about that.
It's a good segue.
But that does come back to the why you're trying to be interviewed in the first place. So if you know why you're doing this, I guess you also know why you should be dressed in a certain way to communicate that whatever that topic is that's topical from what you're telling me here is if it's, you know, something that's coming up because it's seasonal or it's in the news and you know you're the expert in that field and you're pumping out these media releases. In saying all that though, is there words that you should be using? Like, is it just the words because it's topical, or is there things that the media look for that would put you above others when you're trying to get out there? So now that you're looking good, you think you know why you're doing what you're doing, what are we now doing to try to attract their attention? Is there things that we have to say?
I guess if the media don't know you, you have no media reputation, and as I said, the media release is the best way to get noticed.
Yep.
And the most important thing of the media release is the headline. And when you email your contact at the media, or if you're sending in to a generic email address, the subject line of your email is the headline of your media release. And that has to have a hook in it. It has to captivate attention. Otherwise, it'll just be lost. So I was at a Meet the Media event in Melbourne a few years ago, and the producer from the Today Show was there. And he said, my day starts at 3 o'clock in the morning, get into the office, we have a boardroom, and we listen to ABC radio for their news break of the day, and then we look at all the newspapers around the country and the trending stories, and we start to piece together the show and what we'll cover in the news. He said, then I go to my email inbox, and he said, typically I've got 200 to 300 emails every single morning from people that are, like us, and others pitching our story to him. And he said, if your subject line for the email doesn't attract me and doesn't trigger me, he said, it's done. I won't even open up your email. So one example he uses was there was one email that said vein glue. That was the headline. That was the subject line of the email was vein glue. And he just did what sorry, what vein glue? And he had to open the email, and it was about a new treatment for varicose veins, which then went on the show because he's a baby boomer, and they have, he said, anything to do with health or wellness and living longer, we like to cover on the Today Show. So that's an example of having, using curiosity and intrigue in the headline, and that basically hooked the reader into go, right, I want to open this. So,
So you again highlighted knowing your audience as well. So if you are watching the media and you are watching a particular, whether it be the writer or the TV presenter or whatever, it's understanding their personalities as an interest as well, so that you can try to attract their interest. Yeah, for sure. So I'm going to forget his surname, but on the project, Waleed, right? He's a huge Beatles fan. Right.
So I do know a story of a 13-year-old girl, Australian girl, a couple of years ago, who went to the UK and recorded in the Abbey Road studios. And that was enough of a hook for the Beatles for him to want to interview her on the show. So if you do know a little bit about whether it's, the journalist that's interviewing you or the producer or the editor, that can help a little bit, but you don't have to. But it's also good to show that you understand that their audience. So again, if you were a 20-year-old personal trainer, you probably wouldn't be best pitching yourself to ABC radio, because that's an old demographic. That's kind of, 35, 40 plus. And then if you were maybe a financial advisor targeting baby boomers, you wouldn't pitch yourself to Triple J. That's just a complete mismatch, and that's showing that you don't understand their audience. So you're doing yourself a disservice. So be clear on what I say is, if you've got a bit of a database, send out a survey and ask your database. So what radio station do you listen to? Is it AM or FM? And then list a few that you think would be appropriate. What current affairs show are you watching? You know, is it The Project? Is it a current affair? Whatever SBFS have? Is it, you know, 7:30? And then what newspapers do you read? If you do read newspapers, or are you subscribing to? And podcasts. And that'll give you a bit of an idea of, okay, so this is where my database, and they're my ideal customers. If they're consuming that media, great. I want to put myself into those media mediums, and then I'll get interviewed. I'll get more organic growth and contact from people, because that's the media that my target audience is consuming. Yeah. So that's a quick, easy way to help you identify who you should be targeting.
Yeah. So that leads to, like, when we're talking media right now, there's obviously traditional media with TV, radio, and paper, magazine kind of stuff. But now with the introduction of social media and a bunch of online options, how are you finding what you do? How is that affecting I guess, a couple of things. One is the type of audience you get yourself in front of, or two, the type of content you're having to create to get out there and be involved in that medium. Like, has that changed, or is it still standard media release goes to an email, and which is actually a new technology? If you think about it, it was the old fax machine before that, and before that, send a letter in. So, how's that changed?
I don't think that has really changed. But what I have noticed in the last 4.5 years is, when I say media, what we've done now is with social media, we've dropped the social. So if I'm at a networking function, and I hand my card, or I say from High Profit Media, people automatically assume I'm in social media. So I've noticed that trend, that we've actually dropped the social off media. Yeah.
So I'm going to call myself Cube Media from here on out. There we go.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. You could just drop the social media. Yeah. So I always have to say to people, no, I don't do social media. I know some great people who do, but that's not my particular niche. I'm traditional media. And they're like, do people still read newspapers? I'm like, yes, people still read newspapers. Absolutely. Yeah. One of the biggest interviews I did that had a massive impact on my business in FIFO Families was, I was interviewed by a freelance journalist called Vicky Laurie in Perth, and it ended up being on the front page of the Inquiry section of The Australian. Massive photo of my kids and I walking down the driveway. I very much looked like a mum at the time, because that's my business was about supporting the families. Yep. And it had the biggest impact, because it was the CEOs and the company executives of the mining, oil and gas companies that read that particular article and went, what is this FIFO Families? Who is this Nicole Ashby? So we got into the office on Monday, emails and phone calls, hugely powerful. So another story, I had a client in Perth who was a property manager, and she was disrupting the property management industry in Perth. So instead of having a percentage fee charged per property, so if you're renting out your house for $1,500 a week or $500 a week, instead of having that sliding scale, she charged a flat fee. Right. Nobody else in Perth was doing that. So she got interviewed in the West Australian, and she was all nervous and rang, I'm going to be in the West Australian. Yeah. And it was brilliant. And then the radio station followed up off the back of the newspaper article. But the next day after the newspaper interview, she just said, my phone, or that day, she said emails and phone calls from one newspaper article was just crazy. So it's really powerful. And some of the people who are on tonight or through RoB might know of the Geelong Advertiser. Yep. And there is a solar panel installer and maintenance guy called Brad Ott. And he was recently, in July, he was interviewed in the Geelong Addy. Yep. And I said, how did that go? And it wasn't a Wednesday or a Saturday, which are your best days to be interviewed. I think it was a Monday or a Tuesday. Yep. And he said, Nicole, I got 7 leads from that one newspaper article and a commercial lead. And I said, brilliant. So what does that mean in terms of, dollars in the bank for you? And he said, that's $80,000 profit without the commercial lead. Yep. One newspaper article. Yeah. One. So try and do that 5-6 times a year.
Or try and do that through a Facebook ad or something like that. Like, it's not, So And that's the whole reason we're having this interview tonight, is because we want to highlight the power of what we're talking about, is that if you do it properly, the results can be like, they can change your business overnight kind of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's not just make up a dream and do it. It's actually, if you can achieve it, there are some amazing results you can get out of doing this kind of activity. In saying that though, I think you might have mentioned to me in the past, you did one interview and they mentioned a whole bunch of stuff about you, and then you went, oh my God, I don't have that website set up, or I don't have that thing. That was something that was you? That was a horror story you've told me before? You had an interview? That someone
well, I did have one horror story from a newspaper, but it was very lowbrow. They were known for being sensationalist. But yep. I did do one. My first TV interview was on a show called Today Tonight, which I've yep. just learnt they're axing in Perth this week.
Yeah.
But it's a nightly current affair show.
And we have Today Tonight here as well. So yeah, and a version of it in Melbourne. So.
Oh, okay. Oh,
yeah.
okay.
There you go.
I thought it was just still running.
Been out of town for too long. There you go. So.
Yeah. I thought it was just in South Australia and WA, soon to be axed.
Yep.
But the first time I was on there, it was my first TV interview. I was totally naive. I'd only been running the business for 6 months, and Google Analytics was just flat because the business was new and Facebook had only just started. Anyway, so we got interviewed and went to air, and that night, we had this massive spike, off the charts on Google Analytics. And we had, 13,500 hits to the website in one night. So for a niche audience of, 60,000 workers in WA, and if you think probably 30 to 40,000 were families, that's a fair whack that were watching that show.
Yeah.
But what I realised was, I went, oh, that's great, woohoo. Oh, hang on, I didn't have an opt-in. After that, I set up a membership on the website, but didn't have a membership, couldn't monetize it. So it was just like, oh, that's a nice, warm, fuzzy feeling, but didn't really do anything apart from grow awareness and, I guess let people know.
Yes, it didn't lead generate for you. So again, I guess I'm trying to raise the point of understanding that don't just think about getting the interview, think about what's going to happen after the interview or the media. Because they're going to find you now, they're going to go look you up, and you need to make sure what they see is either what they get, like from what you've been interviewed, I'm assuming, and if, like you said, you can provide an offer or something that they have to leave their details for, because you've now, you've built yourself up as a thought leader, someone with authority, someone who knows what they're talking about, even though at the very beginning of this process, you've had to overcome all that and go, I'm not, why would they want me? You've now done that. Now it's kind of delivering on that. So is there any good things that you think should be on those pages or your website or anything like that? Is there anything that, you found works for people to get the most bang for buck out of their media success? Yeah,
totally. So once you build up your bank of media interviews, and even if it's just starting with one or two. So if you've got, qubeSocial, and then there's another social media marketing company, for example, and there's someone who needs help with their social media, and they go to your website, let's say website A and website B, and website A has as interviewed in the Australian and ABC radio, and website B doesn't have that. Immediately you've got credibility and third-party endorsement and social proof that you know what you're talking about. And it quickens the buying process. So it smacks people in the face of credibility when you've got, those logos on your website. So I had all of them, all the interviews that I did that were notable. I'd have like a whole banner on the homepage of my website. So when people came, they're like, oh, right. Oh, yeah. Okay. It's that FIFO Families chick. Yep. Okay. Here she is. And I'd also have a media tab.
Yep.
So all the media interviews that we did, because it's great to be interviewed, right? But it's also what you do with that interview. That's where the benefits can come. So if it was a radio interview, I would always ask the producer, because you're helping them, it's reciprocal, right? You're helping build their business, they're helping build yours. So I would always say, please, could I have a recording, an MP3 cut of MP3, MP4, I always get confused. An audio
MP4, if it's video, Corey will be cringing out there in the other world.
Sorry.
Yep.
I always get tripped up on that. Sorry, Corey. So you ask for a cut and they will send it to you. And if they don't, just, annoy them. I would always get a PDF copy of the newspaper article, or I'd cut and copy the newspaper article out and take a photo. And TV interviews generally now, you can find it online.
Right.
So some of them will say, well, it's commercial confidentiality, you know, we'll send you a CD, but you can't share it. But if it's on their social media page, share it.
Yep.
And so you just kind of create this bank. And again, that's for credibility. It's also for media, say, you know, BBC want to interview and they haven't interviewed you before, and they go to your website and they see media interview, okay, she knows what she's talking about.
Yep.
So it's just that credibility. But then you can also use those interviews on all of your social media channels. So
right.
Your LinkedIn, your Facebook, Instagram, also on your database. So if you've got a database, you know, you might have your newsletter that's going out, and people who are not yet your customers, if you were to say, look, you know, here I am being interviewed on, you know, I don't know, the project around the rise of social media, and people are like, oh, Chris is on the project. That's pretty cool. Again, it just shortens that buying process.
Yeah, no, look, I totally understand that part, but I think that's amazing. And there's some great tips there that you've given tonight. And I can't believe we've got down to the last few minutes of the interview already. We're coming up to a close. Time flies when you're having fun. So,
oh my goodness.
And I am aware of you're a busy girl and I appreciate your time and things, but I guess, how do people find you? Like what do people, because I mean, we've talked about how people can do it, but you know, there's always still, I need a little bit of a nudge, I need a little bit of help, you know, so if people were to need that nudge or help, how do they find you? Where do they go looking for you?
Yeah, so either through RoB, through the website, I'm on there, Nicole Ashby, or High Profit Media, and there's a hyphen between high and profit, so high-profitmedia.com. On Facebook, Nicole Lancaster Ashby. And look, just really happy to offer up, just, you know, for the first 3 people, just a free 30-minute consult, just to get in there and unpack your story a bit, just, I guess, to highlight, yep, you've got a great story, you know, here's 40 opportunities where the media would want to talk to you, or no, stay quiet, don't do anything.
Yeah.
You know,
sure.
yeah.
Okay, so it's fantastic that you're offering that tonight. So yeah, so hopefully people will jump on that and spend half an hour with you and see what they can learn from I guess the extension of tonight. So I really want to appreciate what you've done tonight and some of the tips you've given. It's been quite fantastic. I think the biggest highlight here is believe in yourself, believe in the message. I mean, it's classic marketing stuff. I, you know, teach this to many of my clients, what you've talked about, but in the media world, it sounds like just identifying who you want to target, what you want to say, and what's topical so that you can be picked up. Think about your language and the audience and what they're looking for. I guess at the same time, think about the medium and what benefits you can do from that. And hopefully some of those tips will lead to, you know, some of those success stories. And I guess if anyone gets one of them, Nicole and I would love to hear about them.
Yeah, we've got to share it. You've got to share it. And just with that language as well, don't think that you have to change the way you speak or the language that you use, as long as you're not dropping the F-bomb. You know, in my media releases, I always use quotes of people, because that shows the reader your personality. So the way you talk is fine. If you say, I do, that's okay. Or so, that's fine. It's all about, I guess, the passion that you bring as well, and your knowledge.
Fantastic.
And now that whole, I just want to say too, Chris, sorry, that Christmas, New Year period, so December and January, is a beautiful time to get your story out there, because the media has less stories to report on, so they're starving even more. So if you're thinking about it, now is a really great time to get yourself out there.
Right. Well, there's a great tip to finish on. Fantastic. Yep. All right. So look, again, thank you for your time tonight as we close up.
Pleasure.
I just want to quickly finish off with next week. We have Costa Latro from Icon Images talking about how to go about getting your brand and the graphics, which ideally would work really well with what you've been talking about tonight, because I think if you've got that credibility with how you are presenting yourself visually, sometimes that will just overshadow the words, but the words will enhance that and they'll work together well. But if you look the part, you are the part, kind of thing. So look forward to chatting with everyone next week and showing you how that's going to work. Otherwise, it's been fantastic, Nicole, and I look forward to seeing you at our next RoB meeting and definitely online somewhere sometime soon. So thanks for your time.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks everyone for coming along tonight. We really have appreciated you being here. So, hang on, there we go. thank you, Corey. I think we gave you enough shout outs, but thank you so much for what you said there tonight. So thanks again, guys. Take care. Enjoy your night.